endless sands, timeless tales, and nature's grand spectacle. Welcome to Egypt's western desert, where adventure awaits you at every dune's crest. We are in the footsteps of abandoned camel caravan tracks and signs of the existence of humans in this area thousands of years ago. This adventure pushed us to our limits a few times, but it was an adventure of a lifetime. Good morning! We are on our way to the Black and White Desert, and we will drive along old camel route tracks. So we will be off for the next 4 or 5 days and will probably not have any reception, but that's very nice and we are very looking forward to this trip. Our starting location is near the Baharia Oasis, where we dipped in some hot springs before we began our drive south. Here in Baharia Oasis you find like a lot of hot springs. We started with visiting the Black Desert and made our first stop and climbed up a tiny mountain. It's a little bit windy right now. That's due because of a little sandstorm that is coming from this direction here. But we made it to the Black Desert and we hiked up a little peak, and from here you have an amazing view over the entire Black Desert. We continue our journey through the Neolithic maze, which looks like a maze and you can easily get lost if you don't know your way. You can find in the entire area black stones basalt. The whole area was under the sea level millions of years ago, and there must have been a volcanic eruption underneath the sea. That's why you can find shells covered in basalt. There are also these weirdly round-shaped balls that are constantly popping up from the ground, and no one knows why they're here or shaped like that. A nice photo stop on the way is the Doctor's Hill. It is called Doctor's Hill because there's a doctor's grave in vicinity. We had to deflate some air from the tires to find the correct pressure, because we initially got stuck. So it was time to get the hands in the sand and use the shovels and sand ladders. We then continued driving through the Rajeh Dunes until we reached a nice high dune with spectacular views to make our camp for tonight. So we now reached our camp for tonight. We drove up all the dunes with the truck. I was so impressed, it was so cool. And we now will hike up this little mountain here and enjoy the sunset and some nice views, and then we'll prepare ourselves some dinner. It didn't take long for our little fella to smell the food. This little guy stayed with us all night and did not give up on his search for food. It's day 2 on our desert trip. We just left the dunes and we will now drive towards the White Desert. Today is about changing sceneries. We left the dunes behind us and descended to a beautiful valley. So our first stop today is this beautiful valley called Agabat, where you have this very beautiful rock formation. You can also find in this entire area a lot of coral reefs, because this entire area used to be under the sea level. But you are not only find corals, you also find like a lot of shells, like this one for example. Some are loose and some are inside the rock. Very cool. We continued our journey and made another stop close by. Here are very nice rock formations, and behind me you can see the so-called white window. Now it was time to get some kilometers done, so we drove through and climbed the Karaween Dunes. Our next stop was a little oasis in the middle of the desert. This was a nice place to relax, fill up our tanks and discover the area. We are now getting water from probably the oldest well we've ever got water from. This is an old Roman well in the middle of the desert. Very windy, unfortunately, but I was trying to explain that there's not just a well, there must have been an entire Roman settlement, because you can find pottery and graves everywhere. Another incredible sight are these petrified mangroves covered in mud. And again, nobody knows how the mud came here. This entire desert is full of mysteries, so you start to wonder how this area must have looked back 1,000 years ago. We passed an old British sign from the 1930s. This was the Old English road from Farragut to Baharia, which shows that from here it's 150 kilometers to Baharia. Next we passed the Karaween crescents and reached our final destination today, just in time for sunset. We have now made it to the White Desert, and there are so many beautiful rock formations. Behind me you can see, for example, a rock looking like a mushroom. This was the only time on this entire trip that we saw other people, because the White Desert is already becoming famous for tourist trips. So you can see some people coming here in organized groups for the night. But that didn't bother us much. The desert is big enough, so we drove a bit away and we were completely alone again. Sunrise and early mornings in the desert are magical. The light and the perfect temperatures makes it the best part of the day. So I woke up early, got some coffee and captured the perfect light. On our way out of the White Desert, we checked out some more cool stuff, like whale bones and UFO-looking shells. Then we left the White Desert National Park behind us and drove through the Karaween sand sheet and dunes. Today we had to cover a good distance, so we drove around 180 kilometers through the desert on old camel road tracks. The scenery looked more or less like this the whole day. But it never gets boring, because you climb dunes, you get stuck, and you constantly find interesting things on the way. In the beginning, we passed some agricultural fields, which are massive round-shaped fields in the middle of the desert. It is impressive and even more remarkable that they have access to water underneath. This is a 100 years old oil can from the 1920s or 30s from the British when they are traveling on this old camel road track. Our friend Turbo found this rod and thought, hey, let's check it out. So we got the shovels to dig it free and found a broken pottery vase inside. The shovels were insufficient, so we had to bring in the winch in the end. Just some goofs playing around in the desert, I guess. You can also find many old cans and other stuff from rallies that passed here. So got creative and did some art with it. We continued driving and reached our last stop for today. I'm right now in the middle of the desert, and here is an old airstrip from the British back then. And on the left, on the right side, you can see all of these colorful markings which used to mark the airstrip field. We then found a nice camp in the Dakhla Dunes and enjoyed a nice evening. Very good morning, this is day number 4 on our desert trip. I just woke up with sunrise, got my coffee, and now I will wander around the dunes and enjoy the morning. I slowly feel disconnected from our modern world and the constant need to be online, and I feel for the first time in a very long time present. Oh boy, and little did I know in the morning what kind of day this would be. So I was thankful for my chilled early morning with yoga and meditation in the dunes. Today's terrain was challenging. It constantly changed from deep sand to sharp rocks, so we had to inflate and deflate the tires a lot. But the scenery looked pretty spectacular from above. Yay! But now we have a really bad flat tire. It was not just a flat tire, some of our canisters on the roof also leaked. Poor truck. It was pretty hot, so we had a good timing for the flat tire, the blazing midday sun. But there's nothing you can do about it, so let's change this tire. hours later, we exchanged the tire, put the broken one up on the back, put all the tools away, and could finally continue driving. So that's the situation you want to have. A broken AdBlue canister who messes up the whole truck and the flat tire. But we fixed the flat tire and we exchanged our spare tire and it looks very nice again. Oh, and well, is there any better proof of a successful tire exchange like this? We then camped near the Shawshaw Mountain with its beautiful and complex dunes and got to bed early and tired. Very good morning. This is our last day on our desert trip and I'm very sad because it was such an amazing trip and I really enjoyed being in the dunes with no people, no noise. It was so amazing. Yesterday has been very intense. First we lost the drone and had to search with the GPS coordinates, and on the way to that trek to search for the drone we got the flat tire and had to exchange the spare tire. But it all worked well, so it was not too bad. It was just a little bit exhausting because it was almost 40 degrees and we had to do all of that in the blazing sun. But that's part of the trip. So today we will head towards Haga and then we will go to Luxor. Well, little did I know that yesterday was easy peasy and today was going to be much more intense. But first things first, breakfast. We left the Shawshaw area behind us and the route took us through the area of Kara Fresh, the Gozmond valleys and the Gozmond descent. We had to descend slowly and carefully from a mountain plateau into the valley. The first obstacle was a very narrow passage between stones and rocks, and we couldn't fit through, so we had to clear a stone. But hey, what's a little workout in the morning? Then it went further down through very tight corners with little space between sharp stones and incredible soft sand. And dilemma. The midday sun made all of the shadows of the dunes disappear, so that the incline and decline could not be seen because the shades were missing. Suddenly, the left front wheel slipped down the slope in the soft sand and pulled the entire vehicle down with the weight of the container. Luckily, we got the sliding truck to a standstill, even though the container was at an extreme tilt. 1 meter further forward and the truck would have overturned down the slope. You can't really see in the footage how severe the situation was, but maneuvering forward was impossible and meant sliding down the slope. So we let most air out of the tires to have the best possible traction and put all the sand ladders under the tires to pull the truck backwards up the slope. After all the sand ladders were laid, we dared to try back while 6 cameras directed towards us. The engine roared, everybody groaned in relief after the successful attempt, and the truck was back on track. Turbo and I screamed of joy. What a relief. Now it was time to carefully slide further down the caravan route to finally reach the valley. The sand was so soft that it slipped under the tires and the vehicle started rolling. When we finally slid down the dune, a local showed us an alternative route that was easier to drive. We were very relieved when the truck mainly had completed the descent from the heights. Actually, we should have arrived 5 hours ago. However, now that the entire trek ahead of us was full of sharp rocks that could easily have flattened us again, we continued along the route carefully with the truck's limited transmission capability. At the same time, I was clearing the sharp rocks out of the way. Of course, it took quite a long time that way, but nobody wanted to exchange another flat tire. So after a lot of hassle and very dangerous situations and heating sun, we made it down to the valley and we are almost in Dakhla. Finally, we reached the Dakhla Oasis, where we had a little stroll before we continued our journey towards Luxor. This was a hell of an adventure, full of adrenaline, fun and some crazy scary moments. I hope you guys liked this video and will continue following our adventures.